Hello, my name is Jacob Toddson, and welcome back to the Wisdom of Odin. Today, I want to share with you my experiences at a Fellowship of Northern Traditions event, which we haven't had in quite some time, and that was a men's retreat. If you don't know what the Fellowship of Northern Traditions is, we are a religious nonprofit based around Norse Paganism, but other Northern traditions as well. We've had events in Europe, we've had events all over the United States. We have around 20 gatherings a year now, or 20 events. And yeah, it's just a really wonderful community that's been around for a while now. And if you're interested in attending any of our events, ones like the men's retreat, just go to northerntraditions.org to see more about us. My purpose of making this video is that I want to share why having men's selective spaces is important, how it was spiritually healing. And I was one of the skeptics. Like when someone approached me and said, hey, I want to have this space, I said, hey, this can either be a dude fest bro time, or it can be something really deep and meaningful. And that's all based on the rituals and ceremonies. And so that's a lot of what we're going to be focusing on in the discussion of this video. I'm not the most eloquent when it comes to talking about this, but I definitely want to mention this within the conversation of men's spaces is one, there is no one definition of masculinity. And it's so much more deep than we imagine. And in the conversation of transgender and things like that, masculinity isn't just a penis. There's so much more to masculinity, and that kind of swings on both ways. Like just having a penis or just declaring yourself a man isn't quite it. There's so much more to it. But with that, coming to a men's retreat, in my opinion, if someone is seeking to be a man, if someone doesn't think that they were born into the right gender and things like that, I think it's even more important to come to a men's retreat because masculinity isn't just defined by a penis. And I think it's so very important to have diversity within men's spaces. I mean, we had macho men, we had people like me who aren't macho men, who are just creative art types. You know, it's one of those things where there's such diversity within masculinity, and that's part of the conversation. And so why I'm so glad we're having men's spaces, because it isn't just defined by one thing. I hope all those disclaimers made sense. I don't want to have this conversation to, be like, ooh, men are the best, men are great. Like, that's actually the exact opposite of this conversation. I want to have this conversation about masculinity and to talk about this men's retreat because we don't talk about the actual core nature of masculinity enough. We stay surface level so much as men, and then we focus so much on breaking manhood down that we never sit there and talk about healthy masculinity, what that looks like in today's world. And in order to do that, we have to have retreats. We have to talk about it as men. And we have to talk about it on YouTube. And so at the end of the day, I don't make these videos to make definitive conclusions. And I want to know your thoughts down below. So before we go forward in this conversation, let me know your thoughts on masculinity, what that looks like in today's world, what it means to you. So yeah, I think that's all the disclaimers we need. So with that, let's go ahead and really dive into this conversation talking about masculinity. When we were planning this retreat, one of the main things I added to this conversation is that I really wanted us to have sacred councils. I have been a fan of sharing circles for some time now because I was really surprised at what really getting things out in a sacred space, how important it really was. And so I wanted to take the idea of a sharing circle, which is a little bit more uniform, like everyone passes a sharing stick around and opens up about their feelings. I wanted to have something like that, but a little bit more of an open forum with a topic of conversation. And so that's where we kind of came up with the idea of the sacred council. Every single night, we would have a different topic about masculinity that we would all share about. And it was really cool. Something that kind of came through naturally, and I don't think I have any footage of this, maybe a little bit, is myself and Logan, we would start the sacred space with cleansing. And so the first night we did a smoke cleanse with Kapal, we did a salt water, spring water, holy water cleanse as well with some chanting. And then we did a tobacco cleanse, both with smoked tobacco and hape. And we did a calling of the directions to kind of open the space. We called to the gods, we called to the grandfather spirits, we called to the ancestors and the spirits around us to help us in the conversation about masculinity. And the thing I thought was just really cool is that there were moments of Dude Fest bro time where, we could tell the guys were just having a good time, and even leading up to these sacred councils each night. But the moment we started chiming the bells and saying, hey, it's sacred council time, people got really serious, and the conversations were really powerful. For me, the most powerful moment of the sacred councils is when I was kind of in the center, kind of, watching over the space, making sure everyone spoke, but also kind of asking for polls. And we were on the conversation of depression and anxiety. And I kind of took a moment and I looked at the 20 men there and I asked everyone, if you've suffered from depression in your life, raise your hand. And every single one raised their hand. And how powerful is that? Coming from 2 generations ago, my grandfather wasn't allowed to talk about his feelings. And I'm sure that's true for so many of the men there. And how long have the feelings of men been put to the side, saying you can't talk about them? And here we have 20 men all agreeing, all saying, I've had depression. And we're all talking about it. We're all helping each other out. It was an emotional moment. It was powerful. And so many of those moments of actually like raising our hands, who here suffered from porn addiction? Almost everyone's hands went up. Who here suffered from erectile dysfunction? Hands go up. And I think it's so important for men who often feel so isolated to have these moments of connection, seeing that they are not alone. And I think we often hide the fact that we have these deep personal wounds with our dude fest bro mind mentality of, oh yeah, we just make jokes about it and everything's gonna be okay. We just push that aside. And so to have moments where men are able to be vulnerable together, so very powerful. I realize now I haven't actually mentioned to you the 3 topics. So every night we had 3 topics of the Sacred Council. I kind of wanted to structure it in a way to open people up slowly. I figured we wouldn't start getting into the depth of it until the last night. And so the first night, we just talked about what masculinity meant to us and how we define masculinity. The second night got a little harder. We started talking about toxic masculinity and what that is, how we embody it, how people we know embody it, and our solutions to that and things that we can affect change on. And it's really interesting. The first night, the conversation wrapped up really naturally. The second night, I could tell we could go on a little bit longer. A lot more people had things to say. But then the third night, oh my gosh, it got heavy the third night. We talked about sexuality and men's health. And so I've had a lot of issues with my prostate at a young age. And so that was kind of my inspiration for it is, hey, let's get men together to talk about these things that are uncomfortable. So we talked about sexual health, issues we've had with our own sexual life. We talked about porn addiction within masculinity. And woof, man, it got heavy. These are conversations that many of us I don't think have in any circles. It's definitely stuff that I think a lot of men keep bottled up. And seeing everyone open up around it, so very powerful.
Real quick back at the office, I actually do need to rush back here after filming today because one of the things I'm doing next is I am running a shamanic retreat outside of the Fellowship of Northern Traditions. And this retreat's going to be myself, my good friend Jessica, and Sean and Chris. And I'm just really excited for it. This is like kind of stepping into a different realm here because shamanic stuff is something I've been researching for some time and practicing within my sacred space holding, even though I'm not an initiated shaman. So to actually host an event with 2 other people who are initiated shamans is really exciting. And so if you're interested in attending this event, all the information is going to be on my website, jacobtoddson.com. And so if you're interested in attending one of these events, we'd love to have you. And it's going to be at the end of September here. So that's something I need to work on today. But also something you're going to see on my website is kind of the next chapter for me. So professionally, I really want to move into a work that blends my creative life, but also my spiritual one. And that's why I've been getting into hand poke tattoo. And I've actually done 3 at this past event that we've been talking about. I did sun cross for someone, I did a Pictish crescent, and then I did a triskelion for someone as well. At the moment, I'm only offering these tattoos to people I meet at events, but we'll hopefully be offering them at a shop in the near future. And so if you're interested in following along for that journey or non-fellowship related events, make sure you're checking out jacobtoddson.com for the other side of my life that keeps me very busy. But with that, let's get back to this conversation talking about masculinity at this men's retreat.
One of the things that I'm always cautious of for Dude Fest Bro Time men's retreats is very primal moments, because it's so natural for us as men to be like, we need a primal ceremony. We need a ceremony where we're like, let it all out. And this is something that as a sacred space holder, as a ritual leader for some time, I definitely leaned into. When I first got into this, I really leaned into the primal. And I think not just men, but everyone, when they get into paganism, it is a kind of release. And so they want to kind of shed Christianity, shed the shackles of and the taboos of society. The way we're shown religion growing up often is very somber. It's that we need to pray for God and sing and do this and that. And so doing a primal ritual does feel like an opposite of that. And so I do think that they can be leaned on a little too heavy. And so that's why I'm a little critical of them these days, is I use them very rarely. But someone wanted to do a primal ritual, a primal release for this gathering. In the sense of men's spaces, I do think that they're beneficial. The structure of this ceremony is there was a ritual leader, wasn't me, that did a drum journey beforehand to go to our Fylgja, to your spirit animals, and to communicate with them your stresses in life. And then they would then take them on and then release them through kind of like what would be best described as, like someone said, like almost like a mosh pit, but it was more like contained, where everyone was shirtless around a big fire. And you can kind of wrestle, you could push each other around, you could hug, you can embrace, roll around in the muck. And so it was kind of whatever you needed it to be. And so naturally I was a little cautious of what this ritual kind of looked like, especially for people with PTSD. But actually witnessing this kind of ceremony for myself, I think it went really well. It's definitely something that requires a lot of help. I was just on the outside in case someone needed extra grounding, because it can, it's a primal ceremony. Something could happen. And it sounds like I'm being really negative when it comes to this primal ceremony, but at the end of the day, something that a lot of men, and again, anyone can deal with, but a lot of men deal with, is rage. And a lot of the times that rage bubbles to the surface because we're, again, told to suppress our emotions, and then all of a sudden we explode. It's something we hear all the time in toxic masculinity, is men's anger, men's rage coming up. Considering that in the military today, most people are men, especially in the combat. And this is true throughout most of history. I'm not saying women haven't fought, but the vast majority have been men. And I think a lot of us deal, if you're active in the military or were in the military in the past, that rage is something that is just locked inside of you, and it bubbles up with PTSD. It bubbles up within combat and your memories of what you did. And it's really hard to go from the combat fields far away in a distant lands these days to then turning around and going to a Starbucks or a McDonald's back in the States. And I totally get it. Talking to people with PTSD from the military, I can see that rage wanting to get out, that combat experience. But then someone like me who's not seen that, how many of my ancestors died to combat? How many of my ancestors died horrible deaths? We idolize the Viking Age, but it was a brutal time. And so we can have repressed traumas within ourselves from the many generations of men that were lost to combat throughout our human history. And so I think men deal with a lot of rage issues. I do. I don't think there's many men who say they haven't dealt with it. And so a ceremony like this can really help express rage, and hopefully a safe and healthy environment. And it's definitely something I've witnessed before within my own ceremonies. And so acknowledging it rather than turning our backs to it, I think can be really powerful. On Sunday, we did a rites of passage ceremony for one of our younger members in the community. I definitely want to say the rites of passage ceremony was definitely not my invention. I had absolutely no hand in it. It was completely from the invention of other people at this event. And I think it went really beautifully. We had someone who was 16, so teenager going into manhood. So what had been decided as far as the ceremony is that he was going to go to this really cool cave. I think I got a little footage of it, but this really cool cave on the property as well. And he was going to go down there with nothing but a flint and steel and create his own fire there from the wood that he could find. And that all the other men would be like nearby, and the moment he started the fire, we would approach him one at a time with blue paint on our hand, and we would place it on him and give him advice that we wish we knew at the age of 16 as he goes into manhood. And at the end, he would go into this waterfall and let it all wash off of him. It was just truly amazing to see all the men come together around someone entering into manhood. And it really gets you to think about how important these things are and how much more we need them in our society. I wish I had that at 16. It's some kind of coming of age ceremony, because we definitely have lost that, especially in the American West. But the final, like the really cool thing, like the really snippet here that is going to live in all of our hearts, and I got basically no footage, maybe a little bit. But after everything's kind of settled down, we turned off the flashlights and we were just in this massive cave at night, hearing the waterfall come down. And we had our spears and we just started tapping them on the stone. And before we knew it, someone started playing the drum. And it was like, no one said anything. We didn't say like, hey, we need to do this. It just started happening. And then there was some chanting, there was some singing, there was some grunting, and we were just sitting back there. And my favorite quote someone said is, it felt like we traveled back in time 50,000 years. And we really connected to the ancestors in that cave. Like I get goosebumps thinking about it. I know some people said they cried in it. It was just a really powerful moment for all of us. Really, really beautiful. A book I've been reading that I want to recommend to you here, just purely just because it's a good book, is Nature and the Human Soul by Bill Plotkin. It goes into the different stages of human life, not just at the young age as far as rites of passage, but going all the way into elderhood and death. It recommends, like Bill Plotkin recommends, several different moments in life that require rites of passage. And it was just a really good read. So definitely recommend that if you want to lead a little bit more into rites of passage. So the sacred councils and then the spear dance are the main things I brought to this event. Now the spear dance is something that I've talked about a couple times on this channel before, and it's something that's really hard to talk about because it's something that came to me in a vision. So I was doing my vision quest, begging and crying for the vision, and the vision that came to me, this is no psychedelics, this is pure just fasting and prayer, is the vision that came to me is that you need to do the spear dance. And I asked the spirits, I was like, what is the spear dance? And it said that it's something that's within all of us. All of our ancestors had a spear dance, and you have to re-find yours. And so I created one. I created what I thought a spear dance would be. And it's relatively simple. It's like 3 chants, marching, thrust back, kneel, get up, repeat. And it's something we've done at 3 events now. It's something that we've practiced, and you do have to practice. This is something that's kind of new for the Fellowship of Northern Traditions, is a choreographed ceremony where you do need to do pre-ritual practice before you can actually do it. In previous renditions of the spear dance, we've done it more as just a traditional ceremony with like a bloat. We've given offerings, and it's been more of the background activity is people dancing in the background. But this time we wanted to change things. We wanted to make it a test of endurance and seeing how long someone could do the spear dance for, echoing a little bit of what a sun dance is to the indigenous peoples. And tests of endurance are not something that are alien to us as Celtic, as Norse, Scandinavian, German. And so it really felt like it kind of clicked in. And then the winner of the endurance challenge, whoever could go for the longest, eventually it came down to a vote because they were going for so long, won a spearhead. And so congratulations to Johnny for winning. When it comes to the endurance challenges of the past, the ones that really come to my mind are Lu within the Celtic world, and Lunasa is the idea of having games and competitions. And this is something we see in so many different global cultures. Basically, every global culture has games, competitions, and tests of strength and endurance. And it's, I think, a lesser talked about spiritual element when it comes to masculinity and the identity of humanity because it's been so commercialized these days. I mean, where I'm sitting right now, I can practically see Cincinnati's Bengals stadium, its baseball stadium, its soccer stadium. I mean, there's just millions of dollars, billions of dollars in sports and competitions these days. And so, I mean, millions of people that play sports semi-professionally around the world. And it's really interesting because sports and competition used to have more of a religious element. And I really do think that dedicating physical exhaustion, trials of strength, trials of endurance, dedicating these things to a higher power, to the ancestors, to the warrior ancestors, to Lu, to Thor, to Freyr, all these things can connect you to a very deep root of humanity before the money, before the massive stadiums. We as a species, especially as men, have been connecting ourselves to tests of strength and endurance for a very long time. And when there's that deep connection in history, through ceremony, we can really pull some powerful energy and experiences from it. I don't know if I'll ever do a sun dance. I mean, it is a true trial. It's something I know a few people have done, and hearing their stories, You know, it makes my vision quest, starving on the side of a mountain for 3 days, seem like a walk in the park. And so a lot of men will, and a lot of people will never actually be able to participate in a Sundance. And not to mention, it's an old rite of passage that is really hard to find and do properly. And so doing something like the spear dance really felt like it echoed that in a more obtainable way. And I definitely recognize that Sundance is its own thing. It's something sacred to the indigenous peoples of America. And I think that's what makes the conversation on restoring old traditions difficult, especially when it comes to the Germanic, the Celtic, the Norse. We really have to reignite our traditions of the past and start them from scratch. And that's really what the spear dance was. That's what the vision was to me, is that we might have lost our traditions, and so we need to create new ones. So we have no idea what spear dance ceremonies would have looked like in the ancient past. We do know that the Germanic people had spear dancers, and so this is the best attempt at it that we have. And I thought it was really beautiful. There was something that connected spiritually with my own personal experience. When I was sitting there watching everyone rest in the shade in between rounds of going out to perform this dance in honor of the gods and the warrior spirit. And it was just really powerful and really beautiful, and something, yeah, just really clicked. I hope this video made sense. It's one of those videos where I didn't really know how I was going to market it, just because it's very niche. But I think hopefully for the few that have watched it, it's been beneficial. I really do think that men's spaces are so very important. I've been to a couple of them now, and being able to be vulnerable around other men has been so important for me. And like I said at the beginning, it's really hard for me to articulate masculinity not just being one thing. It's something I really realized this weekend, because my own definition of masculinity, comparing it to others and the 20 other people, is we all have a slightly different definition of masculinity that kind of hover around the same central spear, so to speak. Is masculinity has so many beautiful, wonderful traits, but it also has a lot of negative ones that I think come from a lot of past traumas, a lot of really hurt wounds that have never healed. And we're never going to heal those wounds as men, and we're never going to heal those wounds as a society, as individuals, unless we get together and talk about them. And seeing men come together and do that was truly wonderful. Now, as far as this channel and videos coming up, there's a couple I'm working on right now that are talking about a couple of things that people have mentioned, as far as I no longer have an oath ring and I don't wear one. So I've had people ask me about that before, and so I'm thinking about revisiting oath rings as a topic. And something else I've lost is my beard. I used to have a much bigger beard, and beards used to be so tied to my identity as a pagan, and I know it's really tied to other people's identities as well. And so I really want to talk about it. I've never made a beard video before, and so those are what I'm kind of working on now, an oath ring video and a beard video. So if you're interested in watching those videos when they come out, make sure you subscribe to this channel and look for my videos, hopefully releasing on a weekly basis here again soon. But other than that, got lots of stuff coming. Make sure you follow along, and I'll see you in the next video here at the Wisdom of Odin.